At time of filming we have a combined view count of 34,000. How very lovely. People of Earth, your attention please, this is Greg Johnson making, and today I'm making one of the ships of the Vogon Constructor Fleet from Douglas Adams's The Hitch-Hiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And also a restaurant at the end of the universe. Like all Vogon ships, it looked as if it had been not so much designed as congealed. The unpleasant yellow lumps and edifices which protruded from it at unsightly angles would have disfigured the looks of most ships, but in this case that was sadly impossible. Uglier things have been spotted in the skies, but not by reliable witnesses. In fact, to see anything much uglier than a Vogon ship, you would have to go inside it and look at a Vogon. So that's the description we're going for. In the first book they're described as large and yellow and slab-like, and the fact that they hang in the air like bricks don't suggests a sort of brickish shape. Huge as office blocks, silent as birds. So they're as huge as office blocks, which is huge but isn't that huge. So it's not Star Destroyer huge, they're not the size of a city or a continent, they're just as huge as office blocks, which is quite a nice scale, because anything too massive, the details have to be so fine that you can't tell what they are. But office block size, you can have recognisable windows and such. Also they're covered in lumps and edifices and encrusted with Greeblies. This is for me very much the Greebly motherlode. It's the end of a lifelong Greebly dream. My new album. So it's old school techniques. We're toy bashing, kit bashing, using model parts, sticking things to other things, in much the same way that they would have done to make Red Dwarf or the ships from Alien or Star Wars. And it's a liberating but also quite challenging brief to make a really ugly spaceship. What does that mean? It's rather like making the interior of the spaceship squalid. I realised I needed to sort of add some empty wine bottles and towels around on the floor, because it was rusty and crusty and industrial and dilapidated, but it wasn't squalid. So this needs to be hideously ugly, congealed looking and covered in unpleasant yellow lumps. Lumps of what? We'll figure that out later. This is not a massively varied build, it's just gluing things together from big down to small. I did consider making this whole video just one long music video to a song called Greeblies Montage. Greeblies Montage, it's a song I've never recorded, but I will one day. But I thought no, this is meant to be edutainment and I should inform you what each Greebly is in case you want to find your own. So the chapters are basically the build, panels, pustules and painting. And we'll make a Vogon hatch somewhere in there too. So Vogon Constructor Fleets, there we go. As always, we start with going shopping, by which I mean going through my many chests of junk. So I've got a big fire engine and a big helicopter, they're my core. Then I've got some very cheap and not very detailed little toy battleships. Then I've got some much more finely detailed model battleships, some little cones for feeding pot plants, a toy thing, some knockoff transformer feet and hands, a big spool of, I think they're circuit boards, but I just used the holes from down the edge, some bits of a plastic boat, some little cheap toy tanks, some rocket ships, some planes, and a Millennium Falcon. Dismantling a fire engine, dismantling toys is always really fun, I find. I'm not encouraging children to dismantle their toys, but you know, if you find a little set of screwdrivers, see what's in there. So we're sanding, we're removing things. These are the windows of the helicopter, which will later appear as scenery parts in my next video. You'll see. And then this is my little table saw. Love you little guy. Need a name for my table saw. I'm taking suggestions below. And I'm just cutting out with, if I say so myself, admirable precision, the helicopter to make it ka-chunk over the back of the fire engine. Then you want to start removing scale. So these don't want to look like windows because they'd be far too massive. So I'm using these pot plant feeding cones to just fill in those window holes to make them some kind of vent or side booster, and holding the helicopter onto the bottom of the fire engine with a screw or two. These are, as I say, the feet of a big knockoff Optimus Prime or something, and I'm just cutting out bits that are in the way. That's what toy bashing and kit bashing is really, just cutting out bits that are in the way, or you're covering holes. So this is covering the battery compartment with a bit of the side of a plastic toy ship that just has some ready detail. Make a little stage out of the sides of a ship and some squared owl. And then I'm sticking onto it the underside of a toy aircraft hangar, which has a nice flat bottom, it's pointy at one side, and it's asymmetrical. I decided a big part of this design would be asymmetry. So things are sometimes mimicked on either side, but am I explaining to you what asymmetry is? Yes, I'll stop, because you know what asymmetry is. But I guess asymmetry is a kind of ugliness. It's hard, it's a hard brief. Make something really ugly and hideous to look at, and it's a spaceship. It's tough, man. It's tough. The cheaper the toy, the more likely you can just wangle a knife in there, give it a twist, and it will, like a pistachio. And you've got two halves, both of which have a nice flat back, nice side boosters. This is another one of those toy tanks, again covering up a wheel arch. I'm trying to cover up all the bits that make you think, oh, fire engine. This is the front of a something or other. It just came with the bag of action figures I bought on Facebook Marketplace, but it has a nice chunky construction vibe. I don't know if I thought it was Vogon simply because of those yellow and black hazard stripes on the front. You can be easily swayed. But here again, one of the harder parts of fusing loads of toys together is just holding them up and thinking, what do I need to cut away for this to slot down over this? But you also know that whenever there's a gap, particularly if you're making a really ugly ship that's encrusted in stuff, if there are little gaps left, you'll just cover them with Greeblies anyway. So it's very low pressure. It's not like a Starship Enterprise, or the Heart of Gold, which is the long, sleek, white, high-tech spaceship from Hitch-Hiker's Guide, which I have far less desire to attempt to build, because it'd be harder. Still in the covering holes phase, so this again is one of the cheaper ships. Yes, I have got a plaster on the end of my finger, and no, it isn't related to my new table saw. It was actually a whole different incident of clumsiness where I cut myself. Thank you. 2 bits of craft stick to create a stage, a platform, a dais, let's throw that word in, for another underside of aircraft hangar, which just had these lovely sticky outy bits down the side. You're looking for fine detail. And the lovely thing, I think, with greebling as you go along is that the scale of the thing changes. So it goes from being fire engine size to, as you add the finest of details, which are these battleships that I bought on Facebook Marketplace. Not super cheap, but worth it, because it's a scratch bashing thing I've wanted to try for a long time, is buying some battleships, because I really like the slightly battleshipy design of the Vogon ships from the TV show. Remove any giveaway parts, that's a little plane. And another little long-held ambition of mine is to cut up a Millennium Falcon. The Millennium Falcon is one of the most famous Greeblies ships in the history of movies, and I thought, well, that's a load of Greeblies that are just ready to go. It's not a vintage one, it's a Force Awakens one, I think, that I found on eBay. And it's just covered in these... Mwah! If your spaceship's wobbly, it is worth stopping to make a Mega Block stand to stand it on. I could have made this slightly better, but it's just enough to stand the ship on its base. I don't know about you, but about this time of night I like to table saw a battleship in half. It needs a name. I can't just keep saying table saw all the time. Dinky, shall I call it? Little, some name that means little saw. And just mixing up these battleship parts. So it has some of that elongated eye shape of a battleship, but then trying to square out the ends with other bits of battleship, putting them on different layers. So it has the feel whilst hiding what they actually are. Rotary tooling where it needs to be rotary tooled, bit of an emery board, and another, what's the tower bit on a ship called? I knew. I learnt it for this. The bit that sticks up in the middle of a submarine as well. Cut slots and put them in, and try and spread out your smallest, finest details so it has a consistent scale all over for a bit of consistency. This is the front and the back of a toy tank. Again, super cheap, just hollow little wind-up toy, but covered in small rivets and bits of detail. Another, just remove a bit that's in the way. Good luck shaking it to get all the crumbly dumblies that are inside it out. At some point it's going to become a bit of a maraca, and those bits are in there for good, don't worry about it. Using the less detailed buildings and gubbins off the deck of one of those cheaper battleships and putting them on sticking out sideways, because again, edifices are supposed to stick out from this thing at unusual angles. Still don't think I did that quite enough. It's still a bit right angled, I reckon. But it's good. I'll build Vogon ships again and I'll get it right. And I knew I had a shot where I zoom out from a porthole, so I need rows of windows. These are the tiny sort of cog holes from down the side of that long black strip of, I think they're circuit boards or computer parts or something that I got from scrap. They were my smallest strips of tiny holes that I had. So I thought, right, you're my portholes. They are not in scale with the battleship buildings that are on the roof, but then maybe they're not buildings, maybe they're all like radio masts or something. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine. I use the word fine a lot. It always seems slightly defensive to me, but it is fine. So again, hopefully disguising a recognisable part, which is just the side window of the fire engine, with alternate bits of that strip and just cable ties. Millennium Falcon, the famous round vent things off the back of the Millennium Falcon, just cutting those into square strips to hide their falconicity. And then what's that? it's some Millennium Falcon. Anything that's pale grey is Millennium Falcon. That was the secret weapon. Even there, the famous cockpit, which is just round enough to fit round a Transformer's ankle. Ooh, I could fit round a Transformer's ankle, as the saying goes. This was the little gun. You know, every toy has to have some kind of out-of-scale gun on it that fires little red rockets with a spring. More Millennium Falcon. These are the Millennium Falcon feet. So yes, we're in the Millennium Falcon phase. Maybe this should get its own chapter. Too late now. Even though I haven't edited yet, I've decided it's too late now. So just filling more gaps with far greater detail than what was there before. And it looks bigger and bigger as you add tinier and tinier details. And that's really satisfying. You think, oh, this is quite a massive thing. Speaking of tiny details, this is a bag of boot Lego, knockoff Lego guns that I bought. And I'm just going through selecting ones that have nice square details, and they're going to be some small details in a bit. Filling a gap, I think they're the headlights of a fire engine, covering some screw holes, they're 2 bits of toy train. This is the side of a helicopter. Looks a lot like the side of a helicopter, but once it's painted and covered in gunk, it won't. A piece of a laptop, thank you again to Freya and Daryl for the lovely box of bits they sent me. It has small holes in it. I spend my whole life looking for plastic things with small holes in them, and then saving them. Filling in the door of the fire engine with more Millennium Falcon parts. Just making panels, just put brown tape on the back to hold them all together, filling in that door and covering up that giant fire axe. A ship could have a giant, 200-metre long fire axe on the side, but not on my watch. These are the wings of a nice cheap fighter jet, but I like those rockets. You want things sticking off. And it's a comedy, so you're allowed a certain amount of silly. I thought about putting a big bulldozer scoop on the front of the ship. They could sort of plough through recently demolished moons, but I thought, no, that'll just make it look small again. So wiser judgment prevailed, thankfully. Hate that guy. Who's that guy? Sticking a panel to the side onto which I will stick my demolition beams. Hot glue is very useful on this because it's not a fine glue, but it is gap filling. So goth glue in the middle, super glue around the edges, and you'll get a decent join. How to make a demolition beam. Demolition beams are meant to be square holes in the underside of the ship, but I wanted things sticking out at funny angles, so I thought about guns which are mounted on half circles so that they can fire off in all weird directions. But how to make one? Firstly, take half
a Ferrero Rocher display orb
and the wire spoke from an umbrella, wrap a bit of masking tape around the umbrella spoke so it fits exactly into the bamboo skewer holding socket, then super glue, baking soda and goth glue on the inside to hold that wire. Snip off the excess wire, and then this I thought quite clever, just using 3 bits of blue tack and a curtain ring, put an angled circle around that dome, cut it off with your rotary tool, and then when you stick it flat it will look like it's sticking out at a weird angle. That needs some detailing. Once again, I'm busting out the 1990s stickers from my old mini discs. Then to build up the base, it's a copper washer, the wheel from a cassette tape, always using old obsolete music formats because I'm an old obsolete musician, and then stick a metal teddy bear eye grommet over that, and then tidy up the edge with the green ring pull plastic strip thing you get around the top of a milk bottle cap lid thing, and then make 2 more of them. Actual Warhammer parts. Thank you to the Grand Strategium, my local gaming shop. The Grand Strategium! And to Jack, you know who you are, for giving me some Warhammer parts. So I'm going through looking for what will be massively recognisable parts to Warhammer heads, but they're just finely detailed because I've decided I need to add some extra height along the middle of the ship because it's kind of losing its shape dynamic, and these are the buildings from the far lesser detailed, cheaper battleships, so I'm just trying to up their detailedness, and I'm going to stick them onto the off side, the off-camera side of the ship. So just need to make a little platform out of, again, boot Lego, and just hot glue it all down one side. The joy of making a filming miniature is you only need to detail one side. And if you want to show the other side of the ship, just flip the shot. If I was a proper miniaturist and completist, then I suppose I wouldn't, but I love that shorthand of you only need the sides you're going to see and the rest of it can be real janky. As I recently saw when I went to the Beyond the Stars exhibition in Aylesbury and saw the ore sample pod from the Red Dwarf episode Terraform, my first instinct was to have a look at the back. And yeah, it's not detailed, because the model is built by the people who are also going to film the model, so you know that's the shot. That's not the shot, that's the shot. So these chunkier and less detailed buildings, to which I've added Warhammer guns and pins and needles and just bits of tube and half pearls, are just basically hot glued onto the off side of the ship to create some more height in the middle, because the battleship buildings didn't quite have the impact on the shape that I wanted them to. A pound chop recorder. Chop, chop, chop. Chop, chop, chop. You get little 6-packs of these. I don't think I've ever blown into one. I'm sure they make an absolutely obnoxious noise. But I just cut it in half and it's a row of exhaust pipes or portholes, or maybe they fire escape pods out of there or something. I don't know. Panelling. Where is fine detail needed? Put some there. Shout out to Heron Foods. These I think were frozen cookies. It's just food packaging. This is an Action Man or G.I. Joe dinghy, and it fitted in there very satisfyingly. Lots of fun. Again, this is a Warhammer part. Is it like a portcullis, or what is this spiky thing? But earlier, as I mentioned, it should have some kind of bulldozer JCB vibe, so I've put this kind of spiky ram thing on the front so it can crash through asteroids. Tiny little syringe heads. Do these have something to do with COVID? I can't remember what these are, but I kept them because they're very finely detailed. That's just a big funny pin put into a super glue lid. Again, as I say, it's comedy, so I'm going for the classic sort of Marvin the Martian ray gun. Then had a decision to make. Do I like these bits on the side? No, I don't like them. So using masking tape to mark out a straight line, cut them off with my rotary tool, and I've covered them with these half rockets. Again, from the ultra cheap, super cheap, beyond plastic tat rocket set. These to me are quite iconic. They're the side circles off the Millennium Falcon. So just cutting these again into a shape that will roughly fit around the outside of the larger thing, but knowing that there will be details to cover those gaps should there be any. Oh, there's me. Let's hear what I have to say. Vlog-worthy observation. Maybe. In building up the back, I was going to put this booster end of a jet plane, maybe cut the fins off and put that there. But I've realised there's a danger when you're scratch building that things lose their dynamic. The dynamic of a shape. In the same way that when I stuck all the ships along the top and it looked too small and it didn't have quite the shape I'd imagined, the kind of submarine tower 2/3 of the way back, long, thin, with a tower in the middle shape, and I had to add this extra height with the extra buildings behind. If I thicken up the tail too much, it loses its wide in the middle, narrow at the back vibe. So you've got to be careful with your Greeblies. And your glue gun. So you've got to be careful with your Greeblies that they're not too big, or at least so big or chunky that they fill out the shape where you don't want it filling out, because you want it to stay narrow in some places and chunky in others. So not that. Panels. Some panelling, more fine detail. I've tried to divide this into chapters, but it's basically just doing the same thing over and over again. These are a celluloid strip we got because we went to see Nosferatu quite early. Stuck that on. And here is a panelling idea I've come up with. Diagonal cornered stickers, I think they're jam jar stickers, and this is a leather hole punching thing. Put the stickers face down, and then I'm just hardly pushing, not hardly, strongly pushing the leather hole punch thing to put a series of holes down the side of each sticker. It kind of works, and then the paint fills in those holes. They're a bit big, they're not really for the right scale for this ship, but I wanted to try the idea. Speaking of very, very fine detail, these are, it's like cyberpunk tape, you can find it online. It's very, very low detail. I used a bit, but the paint pretty much covers those patterns. But I'll use it again on something. Mini DV tapes, more obsolescence. But the stickers are useful, because I love a rounded cornered square. And that's the panelling chapter. Aren't the chapter markers good? They stop the video from being repetitive. Pustules, pardon my French. These are buttons which I bought to use as giant mushrooms in a swamp terrain board, which I've yet to make for the person who asked me to, because unpleasant yellow lumps. This ship has to be covered in unpleasant lumps, and I thought, we don't know what their tech is, and I think I've said this before, maybe in the Martian tripod one, the easiest way to make tech look alien is to include some kind of organic element as well. So I'm thinking that their fuel goes mouldy, or is alive, or is pustulent, or it grows these kind of spores all over the outside of the ship, so it's a bit encrusted. And I think it is really only with these sort of warty, tumorous lumps that I think the design is going to achieve that. To see anything uglier than this ship, you would have to look at an actual Vogon part of the text. So I'm using dotty buttons, various sizes of half pearl, and then these red and brown are just when I make my Red Dwarf picture frames or my little Minceman ornaments, when I have some leftover resin, I pour it into a mixed size hemispherical silicone mould I've got. And this is a really, really satisfying and enjoyable thing to do. Put the goth glue down and then just pick up the half domes with your little wax tipped pencil, push it into the warm glue, and it's like one of those satisfying videos, you know, or I hope it is. It is for me. It's certainly satisfying to do, so I recommend it. This was the stage I went from being slightly unsure to, oh, this is my favourite part of the whole build. And again, still finding gaps that need filling. So anywhere now that there's a bit where I've been thinking, bit of a hole there, fill it with goth glue, stick on a little half dome, problem solved. It's crusty, it's lumpy, it's pustulant. I love it. But never mind all that, let's have an intermission. If you've seen the short film, which I hope you have, you'll know that it involves a Vogon hatch, our two heroes looking out of a hatch in the side of the ship. This is a lid of some chili sauce, just a takeaway lid. I've stuck on a few half-bead rivets and some crusty super glue, and a bit of corrugated cardboard in the bottom, because obviously it's quite a squashy plastic, so you just need to fill it with something. Here I'm painting it yellow, but ignore this paint job, because TT Combat sent me some lovely Spotlight Yellow primer. Said we've got some coloured primers, and I was thinking in my head I am about to make a bright yellow spaceship, so it was really great timing, and that's the secret sauce to how this ship looks like it does. So sticking some yellow card, probably didn't need to, but fine. Onto some other card just to make a backing board, and then this is all different bits of food packaging. We got your biscuits, we got your croissants, we've got frozen cookies, the 3 slots under the hatch there, they're from strawberries and raspberries. They always have a little vent window in the side. The white cardboard is from a coffee cup collar, and it's just higgledy-piggledy ship made from old recycled mishmashed stuff, which seemed like the right aesthetic to me. Then sprayed it with the lovely TT Combat Spotlight Yellow, a nice warm yellow all over, and this is an oil wash. So this is brown and black paint mixed with a bit of white spirit, just flicking it all over with an old toothbrush, and dab it off in places where you feel it is excessive. And let it dry. It never stops stinking. Oil washes are a wonderful thing, but I would say there is a compromise in that the final model smells like a shed. So a bit of bright green cards, circle in the middle where you want the window to be, and down the edges where you want some detail. Just take a photo of that, take that into Final Cut, use the colour keyer to remove the green, then realise it's not quite the right aspect ratio, so add 2 extra bits either side, then realise that your porthole doesn't really match the portholes on the model, so cut out the porthole and add 2 of them with a bit of fake drop shadow, then find a friend, film a shot of you pretending to look out of the window of a spaceship, use the same photo of the miniature to add some fake corrugated windows, then find a picture of a glass lens on a black background so you can use those reflections to form what looks like a glass porthole, and using a size keyframe animate a zoom out from that, which you then time with an animated zoom out from the final model, cut a little hole in it with a feathered edge, and basically match it just like a frame at a time. I think this takes about 8 frames. It's a very fast zoom out. And put a heck of a lot of zoom blur on there, and it will work, and I love that shot. And that's how you make a Vogon hatch. Chapter 8476, more detailing. This is the zip from the top of a, one of those plastic document bags. And again, I've just been looking for finely detailed rows of holes. So these are little arrow slots, little vertical windows. The cone of a cheapo rocket ship, just to cap off the children's party recorder. When in doubt, a strip of Millennium Falcon. That's the ship that cures all ills. So anyway you think, not sure about that, a square of Millennium Falcon. Just stick that on there. This is the underside of a computer key, which I thought looked like 4 rocket launchers. Stickers, but I don't trust the glue on them, so I'll put some super glue on the back. And let's add some wire, a technique I learned when I made my Borg cube lamps. Do a wire pass, one of the easiest fine details to add, and it gives you some depth. So the green stuff is florist's wire, which comes in long straight lengths, and then the yellow stuff is just a plastic covered paper clip. These are, again, is this an aesthetic choice or is this just a screw hole that needs covering? It's both. These are tiny snap fasteners which look like steering wheels. When in doubt, add a strip of the Millennium Falcon. Just had lovely crinkly edges. And adding all the rockets and laser beams to the front. Again, it's comedy, so they can stick out at slightly wacky angles. Just adding little bits of Warhammer, little Games Workshop sprinklings. These are the caps of COVID tests with Lego guns stuck in them. That's the kind of thing I do. Add the demolition beams to taste. I've added 3, and this is a little cannon just mounted on 2 washers, one hexagonal one and one round one, and I covered the top with just a drawing pin head. So final detailing before painting, I'm just topping up my baking soda shaker and adding texture to all the goth glue, because it's just a bit too plasticky and smooth for my liking. And if this stuff is meant to look a bit like algae or mould, then it needs texture. So I'm going all round, super glue, also drawing out some veiny lines, which was very enjoyable. Tendrils of this growing stuff, this sort of Annihilation style organic tech stuff. And just hitting it all over with lots and lots of baking soda. Do take the time to put some paper down, because you will catch all your baking soda and just throw it all over your house. Although my cat absolutely loves licking my cutting mat, which I think is something to do with baking soda and salt, and yeah, he loves that thing. And Hoover, the ultimate test of your sticking skills. I'm hoovering it. Not just brushing off the loose stuff, but actually getting the Henry Hoover and sucking the loose powder from off of it. Otherwise it'll all be crumbly and fall off when you paint it. And then I made a very rudimentary, very wobbly, not a huge source of pride, but I made a stand for it to go on. Cut 2 holes in the back with 2 bits of square dowel which go into the ship and hold it, ready for painting. Shh! It's prime time. What a lovely prime time it was, thanks to TT Combat. TT Combat, we're your colour people. They haven't told me a slogan to say. This isn't a sponsored thing, they just sent me some very nice paint, so I'll love them forever. As I often do with prime time, it's not just primed, I've also done a light spritz pass with some black and some silver. Just hold down the top of the can as lightly as you possibly can, and you'll have little freckles all over to give you a start of something, so you don't have that intimidating solid yellow that has no history and no kind of grime to it. Then a pen pass, some penting. Yes, I would love to be sent some free marker pens because I use them all the time. So this is a very fine permanent marker, and I'm just making sure, you know, an oil wash will probably cover this, but I'm just making sure every single window is solid black because I know I'm going to zoom out from one of them, so these are going to be particularly scrutinized. This is a liquid chrome pen, so I'm just doing lots of silver. The gold looks really nice. Just dotting and dabbing all over, and it's satisfying and it's easy. Less satisfying is cutting out tiny bits of hazard tape from these novelty stickers and sticking them on, because in the final thing you don't really notice that they're there. Oh, I'm sick of him mentioning these guys. Yes, TT Combat. So they sent me some lovely paints too. They're really solid colour, they cover very nicely, and I want to make a pale version of the exact same yellow as the primer, so again it's spotlight yellow just with a bit of white. Just to enhance my pustules, which we all need to do, as particularly as we get older. I don't know what that is. This is an oil wash. Hope I've bought enough white spirit there. That's a lifetime supply, I hope. So brown and black oil paint, and it's good. It's just so runny. So if you're a normal regular Joe who just can't get enough of watching capillary action do its thing, this stuff just runs like flow improver into every single little nook and gap and cranny. It's really satisfying. I've always done washes in the past with acrylic and water, but look at that. And it just goes and just fills in all the blah, 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 all the details, and you think, there you are, Peter, there you are, details. And they all pop up as you knew they would, and especially against yellow. It's make a Vogon ship. If you're going to Greebly something, go Vogon. It's a lovely aesthetic, really enjoyable. And now, ladies and gentlemen, no, I did this last time. And now, ladies and gentlemen, with an accent choice that I'll explain afterwards, let's take a look at the finished thing.
people of Earth, your attention, please. This is Prostetnik Vogon Jelps of the Galactic Hyperspace Planning Council. As you will no doubt be aware, the plans for development of the outlying regions of the galaxy require the building of a hyperspace express route through your star system, and regrettably, your planet is one of those scheduled for demolition. The process will take slightly less than 2 of your Earth minutes. Thank you very much. Now, there's no point in acting all surprised about it. All the planning charts and demolition orders have been on display in your local planning department in Alpha Centauri for 50 of your Earth years, so you've had plenty of time to lodge any formal complaint, and it's far too late to start making a fuss about it now. Look, what do you mean you've never been to Alpha Centauri? For heaven's sake, mankind, it's only 4 light years away, you know. I'm sorry, but if you can't be bothered to take an interest in local affairs, that's your own lookout. Energize the demolition beams. God, I don't know, apathetic, bloody planets have no sympathy at all.
So, love it very much. Yeah, really pleased with it. Prostetnik Vogon Jelts. I have played him as a northerner because I live in the Leeds-Bradford area of West Yorkshire, and to me, when you say town council, planning council, I'm thinking of him as local, ambitious council guy, you know, firm handshake, cricket club member, wants to be friends with the mayor. I also thought of Councillors Cox and Evans, the Vic and Bob. Councillors Cox and Evans here! A helicopter landing pad! Those kind of low-key, middle management but slightly ambitious, bureaucratic councilmen in my neck of the woods have northern accents. As I said, just to toot our own horn a little bit, the short has been slightly ridiculously well received. It's been released to a grateful nation who are clamouring for more, which is just really wonderful. Thanks for watching is the main thing. We're currently talking about doing a little bit more. Welcome aboard, and my undying love to new patrons Derek's Room, David Parkin and Rusty. Richie, James, Adam, Rice and Darren. Very wise decision. Very wise. Well done. Proud of you. Proud of you. Since filming all that, I've remembered 3 things. Today's YouTube channel recommendation is Pierce Film Productions. If you like miniatures, there's tons and tons of interviews about classic miniature work on classic movies, not all sci-fi, just very calm talking head interviews that I found really interesting. 2, you can download for free all my different remixes of the Hitch-Hiker's Guide theme, and also the Hitch-Hiker's Guide Boot Up ringtone, the lovely 8-bit version of the theme by Andy Goddard, from my Bandcamp page. And 3, you can download my Hitch-Hiker's Guide title screen, some wallpapers and all the Dentrassi paper ephemera from the short film from my Patreon page. And now a section of the show that we like to call Bad News. If you've been watching me for the last few episodes, you might have seen me claim that I'm going to be in the Nightmare Live show in Chorley and Knaresborough at the end of October. I can't, because I'm going to be at MCM helping out my wife. So if anyone has bought tickets to those shows, don't regret buying them, it's going to be absolutely great. But I'm not going to be there, which I'm genuinely sad about, doing that show in Knaresborough and trying to get family and friends there, and it would have been kind of joyous. But one sides with one's partner, doesn't one? So we're off to the October MCM instead, which is fine. So yeah, sorry, and sorry to Tom and Paul, because I said, yeah, I'll be in your show. Then I was actually opening my diary to look up, when can I film again with Tom, and we'll do some more, and then I thought, oh, hang on, how many October 24th are there? There's just the one, double booked. But seriously, if you have got tickets, go, because it's just a brilliantly funny, really joyous, really warm show. I think if you like this thing that I do, you will like that, because it's similar, silly, family-friendly, good vibes. Which is what we try and put into the world, isn't it, buddy? Yeah, so lots of love from me, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon with how I turned my house into the interior of this Vogon spaceship. Bye! code word, should you wish to post it, is poetry.